The Vrexian research vessel Thoughtseeker drifted in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, its crystalline sensors scanning for primitive life forms. Commander Zilkoth's sensory tendrils quivered with anticipation. After 3 cycles of observation, they had finally isolated a lone human specimen, far from Earth's defensive perimeter, repairing a mining drone near Ceres. The human's name was Harry Chen, a contract engineer who had volunteered for the isolation of deep space work after his daughter's death. He didn't notice the shimmering distortion in space until the tractor beam locked onto his small repair pod. "What the?" Harry's words cut short as his vessel lurched violently. Through the viewport, he watched a ship materialize, not through conventional drive displacement, but through a folding of space itself. The craft was beautiful in an alien way, flowing curves of what appeared to be living metal, pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Then everything went dark. Harry woke in a chamber that hurt to perceive. The walls seemed to exist in more dimensions than his mind could process, creating a nauseating sense of depth and shallowness simultaneously. He was restrained, not by physical bonds, but by a field that made his muscles refuse his commands. 3 beings stood before him, roughly humanoid, but their bodies were translucent, revealing complex organ systems that shifted like liquid light. Their heads bore no faces, only clusters of sensory appendages that tasted the air, reading his biochemistry, his fear, his defiance. "Subject is conscious," one of them, Zilkoth, communicated through a neural interface that made Harry's skull ache. Primitive neural structure but remarkable resilience. Adrenaline response is unexpected. "This one is broken already," another scientist, Merzhal, observed clinically. "Psychological damage, loss. It broadcasts grief like radiation." They were right. Harry had stopped caring about living 2 years ago, but being studied like a bacterium under a microscope awakened something he thought had died with his daughter. "Screw you," Harry growled. The Vrexians recoiled. Their translation matrix hadn't anticipated defiance. For 6 days, they tested him. They subjected Harry to scenarios designed to measure human limits, pain tolerance, problem-solving under stress, social cooperation algorithms using holographic simulations. Each test revealed something the Vrexians found disturbing. Humans didn't break predictably. Where their mathematical models suggested surrender, Harry adapted. When pain should have induced compliance, he found ways to compartmentalize it. When isolation should have shattered his sanity, he invented companions from memory. His daughter Honey's voice, teaching him patience as he'd once taught her. "The subject exhibits irrational attachment to deceased offspring," Zilkoth noted during a review session. "This Honey entity appears in 73% of his cognitive patterns. It should be a weakness, yet he derives strength from it." "Impossible," Merzhal clicked. "Attachment to the dead provides no survival advantage." But Harry had learned something they didn't know he'd learned. The Vrexians' technology was advanced, but it followed rules, predictable, mathematical, logical. Every test, every scanner, every containment field operated on principles of pure rationality. Humans didn't. On the 7th day, during a routine neurological scan, Harry did something that made no sense. He focused every thought on a single memory. Honey, age 7, laughing as he pushed her on a swing. Higher, Daddy, higher. The pure, illogical joy of it. The absolute mathematical impossibility of loving something so much you die for it. The scanning equipment overloaded. It was designed to map thought patterns, to categorize and analyze. But human emotion, real, raw, paradoxical emotion, didn't map. It was too contradictory, too quantum, existing in superposition between love and loss, hope and despair, weakness and strength. The feedback cascade rippled through the ship's neural network. Containment breach in neural mapping chamber. Zilkoth rushed to the laboratory to find Harry still restrained, but the equipment around him was sparking with crystalline fractures. The human's biometrics were impossible. His brain was producing electromagnetic patterns their science said organic tissue couldn't generate. "What are you doing?" Zilkoth demanded, sensory tendrils flaring in what might have been fear. Harry smiled, and there was something terrible in it. "I'm thinking about my daughter, about how much I loved her, about how much it hurt when she died, about how I'd burn your whole ship down to see her one more time." That's irrational. Counter-survival, it makes no sense." "Yeah," Harry agreed, "that's the point." He pushed harder, diving deeper into the memory. Honey's funeral, the way rain felt on his face, the smell of earth and flowers, the absolute crushing weight of loss that should have killed him but didn't, couldn't, because humans were built to carry impossible weight. The neural interface, still connected to his brain, couldn't filter it. The ship's entire consciousness network was designed for rational thought, for logical processing. Emotion this raw was like pouring molten iron into a computer. Systems began failing throughout the thought seeker. "Disconnect him," Merzhal shrieked. But it was too late. Harry had found the ship's central consciousness, a distributed network that connected every Vrexian on board. They thought with crystalline clarity, shared awareness, mathematical precision. He showed them grief. Not as data, not as chemical reactions, but as the lived, impossible human experience of losing everything and choosing to continue anyway, of loving something so completely that its absence becomes a presence, of finding strength in brokenness. The Vrexian collective consciousness, optimized for billions of years to process only logical inputs, couldn't reject the signal. It tried to analyze grief, to categorize it, to understand it through mathematics. It shattered like glass. Commander Zilkoth's last coherent thought before their distributed consciousness fragmented was understanding. Humans weren't stronger because of superior technology or evolved biology. They were dangerous because they were paradoxes, creatures that could look into the abyss and laugh, that could lose everything and call it meaning, that could turn pain into purpose. The Vrexians had evolved beyond emotion as evolutionary noise. They'd optimized it away. But in doing so, they'd made themselves vulnerable to the one weapon they couldn't model or predict or defend against: the human heart. Harry stumbled through the dying ship, the restraining fields offline. Vrexians collapsed around him, their sensory tendrils twitching as their collective consciousness splintered into a billion confused fragments. They weren't dead, just rebooting into something new, something that would take centuries to reconsolidate. He found the airlock where his repair pod was stored. As he climbed inside and disengaged, he looked back at the Thoughtseeker one last time. It was already drifting, all higher functions offline, running on automatic life support for the catatonic crew. "That was for you, honey," he whispered. The pod's engines fired, pushing him back toward the shipping lanes where he'd be found. As Earth's defense satellites finally noticed and scrambled to intercept the alien vessel, Harry closed his eyes. In his mind, he could still hear her laughing, "Higher, Daddy, higher." And for the first time in 2 years, he smiled. Epilogue. The Vrexian Empire received the Thoughtseeker's final transmission 3 months later. When their analysis teams reviewed the data, they found something that terrified their entire civilization. A single human, grieving and broken, had done what their weapons could not. The official declaration came swiftly. Humanity was to be designated a Category XII paradox threat. Under no circumstances were humans to be engaged, studied, or contacted. They were too dangerous, not because of their technology, but because of what they were willing to feel. The first human they captured was indeed the last one they ever saw. Because the Vrexian Empire, in their crystalline wisdom, had learned an important lesson: never try to understand something that runs on love, loss, and the magnificent, terrible irrationality of hope. That was humanity's superpower. And it was unstoppable.